What's up, Moneyball family? I'm here to tell you about Smash Burgers from Buffalo Bros Burgers. Going to be opening a storefront in the village of Hamburg, and in the meantime, you can find them on the website wherever they're going to be in town. You're going to want to turn up and show out because they have some delicious burgers. Smash Burger is a couple of burgers smashed on a bun with some cheese dripping down. You hungry yet? Check out the Smash Burger from Buffalo Bros Burgers, man. It's good stuff. Hey everybody, it's that time again. It is Moneyball. I am Donovan D. Money Scott. With me tonight, I have a very, very exceptional guest that I'm happy and proud to have on here. We have Bill Polian. Brian is a 25-year veteran of college football. So how you doing? What's going on tonight?
Doing well, man. Just hanging out here in my office at John Carroll, where I'm now the director of athletics, and the men's basketball team, which is currently ranked #1 in the country in NCAA Division III, just wrapped up practice. I was hanging out with them for a little bit, but yeah, other than that, just kind of grinding away this time of year.
It's awesome. Congratulations on being named. Your resume speaks for itself. Very impressive. And you've been up and down, like I said, from Notre Dame to LSU, Nevada head coach. Some ups and downs, right? I guess just like anyone in any field. But in the end, who came through, right? I'm sitting here talking to the athletic director. So kind of give me a rundown, obviously, how you got involved in football and a local, Western New Yorker. So tell everybody a little bit about who Bill Polian is and a little bit of your track record.
Well, I consider Western New York my home. It's the longest I'd ever lived in one area. My dad, Bill Polian, longtime, NFL executive, and really got his first legitimate opportunity with the Bills in the late 80s, early 90s when I was a kid. So I grew up around the game of football and knew that's always I knew that is what I wanted to do. I've got two brothers that grew up the same way. Both ended up. My older brother Chris was on the personnel side, like my dad was.
Right.
My younger brother Dennis is an administrator. He's now a GM in the UFL, the New Spring League.
Okay.
But I love the coaching side and knew that was going to be it for me. Grew up around Marv Levy, Elijah Pitts, Bruce DeHaven, all those great, Walt Corey, all those great coaches, on the Bill staff, and just watched their relationships with the players and knew that's what I wanted and set out on a journey. I graduated from John Carroll in 1997. 2 weeks after my graduation, I was a GA for Nick Saban at Michigan State, and spent 25 years coaching and loved every minute of it. From Buffalo UB, where we were 1-11 or whatever we were, to I spent a year at the University of Central Florida with George O'Leary. We were 0-12 to Notre Dame with Brian Kelly and Charlie Weiss, and
right.
I think our last 5-year run at Notre Dame with Brian Kelly, we were 55-9 and went to 2 college football playoffs. So I've had thus far a wonderful career. I'm not sure I'm done with coaching. I needed to put a pause on it for a little while.
Heard it here first, folks. Heard it here first.
I had to put a pause on it for family reasons, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I get to serve my alma mater, but it's I've lived a blessed life thus far, and excited to see what the future holds.
Well, listen, that's a burrito, a very well-filled burrito. Good job there, right? So, I mean, as far as, you had mentioned the UB Bulls, UCF, right? These programs, that you have seen some success with and obviously not so much, right, in the years past, almost the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL for a little while there. Everywhere starts with a foundation. And I think sometimes there's not much credit for the pioneers. And what I mean by that, Brian, is somebody had to come and pave the way, right? Somebody had to come and roll out the carpet for people to walk on it. So I think what gets lost in the shuffle sometimes is, hey, who was there when this team was 0-12, 1-11? There wasn't a magic wand when the next coach came and, whoa, we're going to, go ahead. We want to win 10 games this year. I think lost in the shuffle a lot of the time are the guys that were there putting in that work, grinding, and then someone else kind of gets the credit, right? Per se.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, but that's the nature of our business. I mean, the George O'Leary, when we were at Central Florida, George took over uh, a, a a team that was transitioning from one AA to one A, and really he took that team. Uh, I was only there with him for a year, but we were 0-12, and the foundation of what we built.
Right.
In fact, some of the players we recruited, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Smith, guys like that, 4 or 5
Big
years
names.
later, they were winning bowl games, and
Sure.
coach's success led on to winning the Fiesta Bowl with Blake
Yep.
Bortles at quarterback.
Yep.
I think specifically to the UB time, there's going to be a name that a lot of Buffalo people don't remember, but the guy that gave me my first ever full-time job in college football was Jim Hoffer. And Jim was the coach that took UB from, again, 1AA through the MAC, and
Yep.
and you know, that was a really difficult transition. Like, I don't think the people at UB really understood what it meant to try and compete at the 1A level and do those things. And what Coach Hoffer did, and it took us a little while to figure it out, there's no doubt, but the guys he recruited won the MAC championship with Turner Gill. And
That's what I mean.
there were 2- and 3-star players from from Webster Schroeder and from places that weren't hotbeds, that he found players that could play, that ended up playing in the NFL.
Right.
And that's the nature of what we do. But like, there is great joy, in saying, hey, I was on the ground floor of that thing and helped build it back up.
For sure. And that's very well said. I think a great segue too to something I wanted to touch on with you, which is Manti Te'o, the whole, I guess, if you want to call it a situation. I don't so much call it that. I guess others may, but what I see there is a young man who was an amazing athlete, probably still is. I think he's only 30 or 32, right? I mean, I'm 45. I say young man. I don't know, right? But and obviously went under some scrutiny and had some things happen. But forget all that, right? Wipe the board clean. You saw talent. So, I mean, tell me a little bit of the story there, because from what I read, and you don't always read, Wikipedia, Google, these aren't always the best places for fact finding and information. I like to keep this pretty raw, so I like to hear it from you. But from what I understand, you saw a talent there unlike anything I think you've seen, kind of pursued it out in Hawaii and met with the family, right? I guess tell me the story of who that kid was.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. First of all, I didn't see anything unique. He was the number one defensive player in the country. I mean, it's not like we discovered some gem. Like, his talent was obvious, right?
I said that to you, man. You can just
Now, the fact that I was very young at the time, I was in my early 30s. I was working for Charlie Weiss at Notre Dame. We're divvying out the recruiting areas, and it was like, well, Notre Dame shouldn't have success on the West Coast. I mean, USC was in its heyday with
Right.
Pete Carroll and Reggie Bush, and so we'll stick the young kid out on the West Coast and see what we can get. And I was like a golden retriever, man. I was just dumb and energetic and didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be able to go out to the West Coast and bring players back to Notre Dame and
Ryan,
recruit them.
the hungry dogs run the fastest, right?
Yeah. So I just connected with Manti right away. And over a 2-year period, I probably flew to Hawaii 16, 18 times. And I mean, I'm talking like the United Airlines from Chicago O'Hare to Honolulu, 10 hours straight through. And then I would take a red eye from Honolulu back to LA, do a couple days in LA. I mean, what I did to myself physically,
Yeah.
I look back on it now, it's like, I was insane.
Yeah.
But I was young. What I discovered, though, was just an incredible person. I mean, he was a great kid. He's up from the North Shore, Laie, which is way up north. They didn't come from a ton. He was driving an hour down the mountain to go to high school at Punahou in Oahu. Same high school as President Obama, Michelle Wee, famous golfer. I mean,
Sure.
It's a really elite private school in Hawaii.
Okay.
He's making that trip every day to get down there and receive this education, and we just connected. But the recruitment you could tell that he was a little bit naive. He had not been off. In Hawaii they call it the rock. He had not been off the rock very often, and
Or at all, right?
yeah, I mean, probably for me that was a great thing in the sense that he was not very worldly and didn't have his hand out, and it wasn't all about, hey, what's in this for me. I mean, it was very relationship driven, and he and I hit it off, and his mom T and his dad Brian and the family, his little brother Manasseh, his sisters. I mean, we just got to know the family really well.
Yeah.
And it still came down to the day of signing date, the day
Really?
before, excuse me.
Really?
I mean, it came down, and he was praying and looking for a little bit of help, and I happened to I sent him an email that his dad read to him on a voicemail, and he was sitting under a tree on campus, I guess looking for a sign. He opened his flip phone, listened to his message, and it was his dad reading my email to him. And I will tell you, Manti Te'o changed my life, because for the first 32 years, I was Bill Polian's son, right? Like every time I was introduced, my bio in the media guide, right? It's
Yep.
Ryan Polian, comma, Bill Polian's son.
Another great
And
segue,
then,
but go ahead.
yeah, but when Manti signed with Notre Dame, I became the guy that got a Mormon from Hawaii, who was the best player in the country, to go to a Catholic school in the middle of Indiana. And so it changed my career, and I'll forever be indebted to him. And then because of that, I will always be loyal to him. I love him. And I think the Netflix documentary really opened people's eyes up to, hey, first of all, he wasn't lying to anybody. He was taken advantage of. Second of all, people say, well, how could that happen? Well, when people are creating Facebook pages with friends and you hear the voice, and he was a kid, and we have to offer kids grace, but that's not the world we live in. It's we want to turn on people and make their lives miserable. But I love that he's a man now. I love that man, Manti, and I'll be forever indebted to him.
It's awesome. That's a great story. The sitting under the tree thing, it gave me chills a little bit, man. That's just, it's kind of crazy. Now, do you still keep in touch with him?
I do. We text, and he lives in Utah now. And when I would go through their recruiting, I would always try and find him. And I was really proud of him when the Netflix documentary came out, and the forgiveness and the way he articulated his experience. I was really proud of him, because I could not do that. Yeah. If somebody did that to my life, I'm not sure I could offer the grace that he did. And we talk, and I still talk to his dad a lot, and really there has been, to this day, a pipeline of great Hawaiian players go to Notre Dame, and that started with me and with Manti, and it was Robbie Toma and Kahanu Kia and Maris Leafau, and there's a bunch of them, Alohi Gilman, and I mean, we had this thing going, and that doesn't exist without Manti.
Ryan Polian as the genesis of that, and feeling like you paved a way for that. And you say that he changed your career, and you're really indebted to him. But you know what, Brian? I'm sure he shares the same sentiment. Especially seeing the work you put in 16 to 18 times out there. No one else did that. No one else was breaking their back, going out there and really developing more, looking at him, as more than a dollar sign, right? And I don't know you too well. I can kind of read people, and I can tell you right now, you went out there, you cared for this kid. For whatever reason, you took a liking, the family, everything else, you cared for him, right? And I'm sure, like you said, he had changed your life. I'm sure you changed his. So, I'm obviously you're a little humble about it, but kudos. And it seems now, I think he officially retired from the NFL, right? There was something that said he officially retired.
He did, I think, a year or two ago.
Yeah. And he seems to be living he wants to be away from everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's staying out of the spotlight by and large. I mean, he he's a wonderful, son and brother and uncle. And, uh, I think the family has by and large relocated from Hawaii
Yeah.
to Utah. They're all kind of in the same area. And
Did you say Mormon when they were in Hawaii?
yes,
Okay. And then obviously found a home in Utah.
there's a gigantic Mormon population
Really?
in Hawaii. Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
And very, very heavy in the Polynesian community. And so we were in discussions at one point, is Manti going to take a Mormon mission and then come back, and
Okay.
talking through all of those not issues but opportunities and choices that he was going to have to make. And I knew, I was only with him at Notre Dame for 1 year because Charlie Weiss got fired.
Right.
And when Brian Kelly came in, I actually did not stay. I went to Stanford, and we came back.
Which is interesting, right? Not to cut you off there, but it's interesting because didn't he bring you back?
Yes, he did. But the world is round.
Yeah, right.
Things are strange. Things are strange in our profession.
Yeah.
But he came. My wife came to the Notre Dame Stanford game, and we were in the tunnel after the game, and Manti came over, and Auntie Lori, coach, my uncle, my guy, like,
Yeah.
I knew I had been accepted into his culture. And to be quite honest with you, when I went back to Hawaii to recruit after Manti, I was treated much differently than before he had come. Like,
Right.
there was so much respect for his family and who he was, that the Polynesian community accepted me. Like, okay, we can trust this guy. And that went on for a decade.
You became the godfather.
I wouldn't go that far.
So you brought something up, right? And I thought it was so interesting. You set up until age, whatever, let's say 31, 32, 33. You're Bill Polian's son, right? My dad was never a GM, and not only a GM, right, or upper front office, but someone who's been retired on the wall. I mean,
Yeah.
This guy was an absolute legend in Buffalo. Everyone, of course, my age or anyone in the, closer to this range, or anyone knows who we're talking about, when you say Bill Polian. And again, just a legend in this area. How tough was that growing up? I mean, obviously, yeah, amazing, right? I could sit here and talk to you for literally 4 or 5 hours about Marv Levy and ask you questions and the sidelines and Daryl Taley, Spider-Man, and Bennett and Conlon and all those guys. But, how tough was it to get out of that? Like you had said, right? It was in all the bios, it was in everywhere. And when you get to a point, you want to be your own man. It can almost lead to resentment. I've seen these situations. And you did touch on it a little bit, but tell me that process, when you're 19, 20 years old, 21 years old, did you feel like people were just kind of using you, or, just trying to, hey, let's get to Bill somehow?
I never resented it. There were times I would occasionally feel a little bit sorry for myself, but that was few and far between.
Okay.
My problem was my Irish temper and my loyalty to my dad. And
Yeah.
I would get really upset when people would come at my dad. Like, Larry Felser would write something that was nasty, or Art Wander would say something ridiculous on talk
Throwing
radio.
some names out there.
My mom, what, would happen on in the house. And you're like, what purpose does this serve other than, thank God we didn't grow up during the social media era, because I probably would not have been able to deal with it. And I would, I went to St. Francis High School. So you're dealing with the all boys schools. You got Timon and Joe's and Canisius. And so they all have a good sense of humor, right? So, like, I was going to catch some ribbing no matter what. By and large, though, that stuff didn't bother me. Certainly not when you weighed it against just the incredible opportunities that I was afforded my sophomore, junior, senior year of high school at St. Francis. I was gone for a week in January because I'd be at the Super Bowl, right? Like, who gets to do that? I laugh now. There's a great Twitter handle called Bills VHS. It's a guy that's got a bunch of old games on VHS tapes, and he pulls clips. And once a month, I'll see a clip, and there I am standing behind Marv in an Apex One hat, and holding his cord.
Yep.
And to literally grow up in the locker room with Jim Kelly and Thurman and Andre and Bruce, and is still called on to this day. Mark Kelso is a dear friend of mine.
Yep.
Pete Metzlars is a
Yep.
dear friend.
And these guys were playing at the time.
Yeah, they were playing.
Yeah.
I was in high school. Steve Tasker.
Yep.
I love seeing Thurman. I love, I love to see Jim, and so all of that far outweighs, and any of the negative stuff. Now, when I began my life as a professional, you learn that, there are some people out there that maybe didn't like your dad. So the minute they see you, they're going to assume, right?
Yeah.
My older brother spent his whole career in the National Football League. My whole career thus far has been in college. So I've dealt with less of it. But my older brother has been in the league for 30 years.
Right.
There are people in the league that don't like my pop. So now they hold it against him. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it's the way that the world goes. But I was proud. I remember specifically, I'll share this with you real quick anecdotally. We came out of a Colts game. I was coaching at Notre Dame. My dad was with the Colts. It's like a Monday night game. I happened to be able to make it up. And we come out afterwards, and there's the barriers up, and there's autograph seekers, right? And somebody calls out Polian. And my dad goes to sign. He said, "No, we want Brian. We're big Notre Dame fans."
Look at that.
My mother thought it was hysterical.
It was hysterical.
She thought it was the greatest thing ever. I said, all right. Well, apparently I've officially arrived now.
Yeah, you finally got one there, right? You got one on dad there.
That's right.
Your dad was, he just seemed like a hard-nosed guy. And you said there's some people that don't like Pops. Well, Pops stood for something. You know what I mean? He just seems like the type of guy who would never be walked over, certainly stood for something, raised his boys. I have 3 boys myself, 10 and under. And what you try to do, you try to raise them, I guess, the best you can. And you want them shaped a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And he did an excellent job, with you and your brothers, obviously, and to keep you guys humbled and to keep you guys a certain type of way with that fame. You know what I mean?
There's no doubt about that now. I mean, we were never allowed to feel like we were special or that we were of privilege. I mean, when we would go to Fredonia in the summertime and I would be physically abused by those players, like taped to a goalpost and left for...
Hold on, let's find old VHS guy here because I need some of this footage, man.
I mean, there's those big travel trunks, and they would lock me in the travel trunk and spit it around for a minute. And my father, not only did he not stop it, he encouraged it.
He loved it.
He wanted to make sure that my brother Chris and I, my younger brother Dennis, and to a certain degree, the oldest is the only daughter, Lynn. Like I always had a summer job. We always worked.
Okay.
See,
but that right there too, that's just telling me he's instilling something in you. It's not a free ride.
And of all the things that I took away from him, his love for his family and his loyalty to his people.
Yeah.
Like, to him, the players always came first. The coaches came second. He and the administrative staff always came behind them, because without the players and the coaches, they don't have jobs. And just the loyalty to people and how he valued loyalty back, that has stuck with me throughout my professional career.
It's amazing too, and you just don't see that anymore. You see it to a certain extent, but not that way.
No, not like that anymore.
Were you ever able to sneak into any of the Hillview parties up there in Orchard Park? Is it Hillview, Hilltop? Right? Did you sneak into a couple of those?
Nope, I did not. But occasionally, the fake IDs were a little easier back then.
Yeah.
And occasionally, there'd be a place in the city that
works.
And there was a place on Monday night that they would go because the player day off was Tuesday. And I do remember vividly, we went to London one summer to play the Eagles in the preseason.
Okay.
And my older brother Chris and I figured out that there was no drinking age in Europe. It's just like, and we wandered into a place and we walked into Jim and Shane Conlon and Thurman and they turned back and just smiled, and it was a long night.
I bet it was.
For the youngsters. It was
Yeah.
it was a long night.
They wanted to show you guys a thing or two, I'm sure. Now, what about your family now? Married, children of your own?
Yes, I do. I have a 14-year-old son, Aiden, and a 11-year-old daughter, Charlotte. And quite honestly, one of the reasons that I got out of the coaching end of it last year was my son. I love him to death. He's the greatest blessing of our life. He's adopted.
Okay.
Doctors told my wife and I we were never going to be able to have children. We adopted Aiden. Aiden's got some challenges, like a lot of kids do.
Sure.
We moved him 6 times in his first 14 years of life, and it just, it got to be the point where we said we've got to settle things down for him, like, and put him in his most important developmental years. He needs some stability. So that was part of the reason that we made the decision. And then we were actually halfway through a second adoption, and my wife called and she goes, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" She goes, "I'm pregnant." So I'm like, "No, you're not."
The number of stories I hear like that is crazy. It's like,
yeah,
right? And
I think all the pressure's off, right? You're not thinking about it anymore. So we have this 11-year-old redhead who actually looks like my dad. She's red-haired and freckled and got his demeanor. In the last kind of year or so, she has really found herself into football. Like, she's a huge Bills fan, huge Browns fan. All of a sudden it's, "Dad, I want to go see a Browns game." I'm like, "Really? You want to do this?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right." And
so hop into the dog pound, huh?
Yeah. So we're sitting out to dinner one night, just the two of us. "What's a free agent?" I said, "A free agent means that he's no longer under contract. He can sign with any team he wants that wants him." She said, "I think the Bills need to sign Derrick Henry as a free agent." I said, "Well, your grandfather
power moves."
Yeah, I said, "Your grandfather would be very proud of you right now." Thinking about that.
Well, let me tell you, man, the apple didn't fall far from the tree based on what you're telling me. It's interesting, just little things that, little keynotes that I kind of pick up, and what you were doing and moving around and bouncing around, right? And you said how your father was such a good dad, and you're changing, you can't keep moving them around, right? You're saying, okay, we need some stability here. We need a foundation. You'll sacrifice your own for the family. And I think that's what any good father does, so kudos to you for that, and kind of realizing and making that decision. Would you ever consider NFL at any stage of your life?
I would. If I were to go back to coaching right now, it would only be one of two ways. It would be as a head coach at a smaller program, which I think, I hope, I pray my journey as a head coach is not over yet. I mean, I'm 49,
young man in today's day.
Yeah. At Nevada, in 4 years, we went to 2 bowl games.
Yeah.
At a place that's really difficult to win. I just happened to get caught in an AD change, which is never easy, but it's a fact of life in our business.
I thought you did a great job there from what the research I did.
But if it's not that, until the NCAA gets a handle of name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal, like where I was at LSU and Notre Dame prior to that, but really specifically LSU, because that's when all of this really hit hyperspeed.
Right.
My favorite part of what I did for 25 years and what I do now at John Carroll is the relationships. It is what drives me. That is the reward.
Right.
Well, the experience now is less about relationships and more about transactions.
100%.
And so if it's going to be transactional, then let's go to the National Football League, where you got them under contract for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. You have a salary cap. You're not, recruiting nowadays, you're never disconnected, ever. I mean, even when it was July on vacation, I'm still connected to my phone, messaging kids, and that gets to be. And with the transfer portal, it just never ends, and it's a hard life. And it's the reason Jeff Hafley, who's the head coach at Boston College, says, "I've had enough of this. I'm going to go be the defensive coordinator at the Green Bay Packers." And it's the reason why Chip Kelly probably said, "You know what? Life is going to be easier calling plays for the Buckeyes than it is going to be trying to be the head coach at UCLA." I think we're going to see more and more of that. But, again, if my journey's if my journey's not complete, I'd love the chance to go to Sunday someday. I have a lot of close friends. Brian Dable, the head coach of the Giants.
You know, I was literally, man, these segues are too good from you
Yeah,
because, Brian was at St. Francis when you were there, or
all 4 years.
yeah, okay. Who was the QB back then? Was it Larry Tiger?
Larry Tiger, who went
Larry
on to
Tiger.
play
See, I know
Syracuse.
I'm again, you're a couple years older than me, but all these
Yeah.
names and everybody you're talking about, and Dable has a real good, couple close friends of
Yeah.
mine as well.
But when you think about St. Francis in about a 10-year window, my older brother Chris, who went
Yep.
on to become a GM in the league and then
Yep.
it now works for the Commanders, Tom Telesco, the GM of the Raiders, Dave Caldwell, former GM of the Jags and now with the Eagles, myself, Brian Dable, I'm blanking, Smith is with the Atlanta Falcons as the head of scouting. I mean, like you're talking about
It's a second to none
Catholic
pedigree.
schools, it's got 500
Yeah.
boys in it. And it's got all these guys in the league. It's really, or Jerry Smith's son Chris is now with the Giants. I
I
mean,
was just going to mention Jerry Smith too, who just a legend, and that's just, the guys who made it, who are recognizable names. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally know a bunch of guys who got drafted, MLB, whatever, the guys that didn't make it. Maybe they had Tommy John or whatever it was, but that school just absolutely breeds success. That's where I intend on all three of my boys going. And unfortunately, I didn't. I was a frontier guy, but I would have loved to have been part of that. And, just the legacy, everything that goes with it there, and it just produced such great people, human beings. Forget the athletic
Yeah.
side of it, forget this guy does this or this guy does this. I judge someone on what type of human being they are, and I like to think you can kind of fairly quickly within a conversation or within, talking to someone, you can kind of judge that and or feel it out, But this was a lot of fun. This was really great. I'm very, very happy you decided to come on the show and do this with us. Something tells me you're going to be in the NFL one day. I gotta call it a crystal ball, call it whatever you want. But and I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and maybe editing will help me with this a little bit. A few of the, would we call them tantrums, right, out on the sidelines there. You were known for getting a little heated. True or false?
Nevada?
Coaching, period. Nevada, especially. Nevada
Nevada's
especially.
a head coach. I'll own that. Like sometimes we confuse tantrum with passion.
100%. 100%. I gotta mess with you a little bit,
My last 6 years with Brian Kelly, I was often pulling his belt loop, trying to pull him away from the official.
I always wonder, like, just the significance of these games, right? And we're coming a day after the Super Bowl, the first new rule Super Bowl ever. A couple more minutes here, I'll let you go. But we got to mention the Super Bowl. It was yesterday, and I'm watching, some of the coaches, and then I'm watching some of the players, and you saw the Kelsey thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean. And I'm watching that and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, there's too many eyes on you now, man. You had mentioned the social media and how different things are, but like, what are people thinking, right? In an era where we go up to one of the players' girlfriends, yes, she's Taylor Swift, but when we go up to her 12 times, right? That's the era we live in. You think you're not going to get, thrown under the bus for going up and knocking your coach over, And
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly would not sit here and excuse that behavior, that outburst. Now, obviously, those two have been together for a long time.
True. Very true.
They have an understanding.
Right.
I will say this. Fans have no understanding of the pressure of those moments, of those jobs. Now, that's why they pay a lot.
Right.
And we all get hired just so we can get fired because very few people ever get to walk away on their own terms. Yeah. That's not how it works. But
Belichick can't get a job, man.
Yeah. So it's but it's just hard in this day and age. You can't be all things to all people. So in the end, probably the best decision is just be yourself, own it. And I go back to a piece of advice somebody gave me. They said, listen, if you hear from somebody, if you would take their advice, then care about what they say. But if you wouldn't seek their advice, then what the hell do you care? social media is in my opinion ruined society. I mean, the way I see our young people that we coach and how, like, Gen Z, 50% of Gen Z will tell you that how they feel about themselves is drawn from what they read on social media. So
which is insane.
if you're a 22-year-old rookie in the NFL and you're trying to figure out whether or not you belong, and you drop one ball and all these jabronis,
I know.
send you this disgusting stuff.
They've never played in their life.
Yeah.
They have no bearing on anything. You heard what was going on with Tyler Bass when he missed that field goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example, right?
Right.
Like that's I mean, do we really believe that Tyler Bass was trying to miss the field goal? I mean, shit happens, man. It's life.
Shit happens.
Excuse my language. But
Norwood, right?
yeah, but I always get a kick out of when people like at Notre Dame would tell me, "Oh, you have no idea. I live and die with the Irish." Like, oh, really? You do, huh?
Yeah.
You ever been fired because it
Yeah,
went bad on Saturday? Because
Right.
that's the world that I live in.
Right.
You know, and part of my adjustment now to my new job in administration and being on senior leadership at a university is, the urgency with which things happen. Like the world I just came from, you had 40 seconds or 25 seconds to make a decision.
Okay. Yeah.
That could move careers, outcomes, millions of dollars. And here we meet to set up the next meeting and talk to keep talking. And it's like, whoa, I'm not used to this, man.
Right.
I'm used to just
Right.
all
Well,
right,
so far so good. I mean, do you like it? Are you adjusting to it, or do you? It's too early to tell, right? Whether or not you truly, miss it. But so far so good.
both things can be true at the same time. Like I miss coaching. That is in my DNA. That is who I am.
Yeah.
There are parts of this job that I love. I mean, I oversee 650 student athletes.
Yeah.
We just went through a conference realignment, which we're really excited about. We're building a $60 million building. We've got 43 people from John Carroll work in the National Football League now.
Yep.
So basketball's on this historic run. They're, I think, 21-1. And so there's some really cool things about this job.
Yep.
Now, I go out to football practice in August and I start to twitch a little bit because I see something in front of me. And I really
can't help it.
I really want to fix that right now, but that's not my role. So
yeah. This was a lot of fun, like I said, and I like the vibe that you're bringing. You're a positive person. It's always a glass half full type mentality with you, and I see humongous things coming. They're very, very fortunate to have you, Brian.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Enjoy your evening, and we'll talk again soon, my friend.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care. What's up, Moneyball family? I'm here to tell you about Smash Burgers from Buffalo Bros Burgers. Going to be opening a storefront in the village of Hamburg, and in the meantime, you can find them on the website wherever they're going to be in town. You're going to want to turn up and show out because they have some delicious burgers. Smash Burger is a couple of burgers smashed on a bun with some cheese dripping down. You hungry yet? Check out the Smash Burger from Buffalo Bros Burgers, man. It's good stuff.
What's up? It's your boy Rick Hyde, Big BSF. And if I'm not at Native Hype Mark, I'm right here at Shaman 2, 1046 Bloomingdale Road. Pull up. Ricky!